The wind howled across the empty plains of Tarsus 9, a lonely repair outpost on the edge of human space. Dust danced in the air, cold and sharp like tiny knives. Inside his small metal hut, Eli, a human mechanic, was drinking lukewarm coffee when he heard a faint knock at the door. Not many people visited this place. Not unless something was broken. And not in the middle of the freezing night. Eli opened the door slowly, and what he saw made him freeze. A young alien girl stood there, shaking. She had big silver eyes and strange green skin. Her hair was tangled and wet from the icy wind. Her arms were crossed tightly around her thin body. But that wasn't what caught Eli's breath. She had no shoes. Her small feet were dirty and red, covered in cuts. She had walked a long way, maybe miles. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. She just stared up at Eli, eyes wide and afraid. Eli looked around. No sign of a ship. No other footsteps, just hers. And they led far into the hills. "Where's your family?" Eli asked, but she didn't respond. She just looked down at her feet. Eli knew the right thing to do. He stepped back and held the door open. "Come inside, it's warm." She hesitated for a moment, then stepped in quietly, leaving faint, bloody prints on the metal floor. He handed her a towel. She dried off, still silent. He gave her water, then a protein bar. She chewed slowly, as if unsure if it was real. Eli looked at her feet again. They were in bad shape. So without another thought, he bent down and pulled off his own boots. "Here," he said softly, sliding them over her small feet. They were too big, but they would protect her. She looked up at him. Her eyes blinked slowly, almost like she didn't understand. Then finally, she whispered something in her own alien language. Just one word, quiet, soft, emotional. Then she curled up on the old couch and fell asleep. Eli sat down nearby. He couldn't sleep. Something didn't feel right. Why was she alone? Why no shoes? Why here? Outside, the wind grew stronger. Eli stood at the window, staring into the darkness. A strange light blinked in the distance. Not a star. Not a ship, just blinking, watching. He tried to connect to the central network, but the comms were down. Suddenly, the girl let out a soft cry in her sleep. Eli rushed to her. She was dreaming, twitching. Scared. "Shh," he said gently, placing a blanket over her. "You're safe now." But he wasn't sure if that was true. In the early morning, Eli woke up on the floor next to the couch. The girl was gone. The boots were gone. So was his toolbox. He rushed outside. Her footprints were there again. But beside them were others, giant footprints. Deep, heavy, too large for any known species. Eli's heart beat fast. He followed the trail until it disappeared into the hills. There on a rock sat one small item, a strange glowing coin made of silver and blue metal he had never seen before. He picked it up. It was warm. It had strange symbols engraved on it. And as he held it, he could feel something watching him from far, far above. And in that moment he knew that girl wasn't just any alien. She was important, and by giving her his shoes, he had started something big, something far beyond his understanding. The wind was still blowing cold over the hills of Tarsus 9 when Eli stood outside his outpost, holding the strange glowing coin in his hand. The young alien girl was gone. So were his boots. But what troubled him most were the new footprints in the dust. They were massive, too large for any human, too wide for any known alien, deep and heavy as if some kind of armored beast had walked right through the night. Eli crouched beside one of the prints. 4 claw marks, 3 long toes, weight pressed deep into the ground. Something huge had come while he was sleeping, and it had walked right to his front door. A cold feeling crept into his stomach. He looked up toward the hills where the tracks vanished. There were no signs of struggle. No blood, no signs of panic. The girl had simply left, but not alone. Back inside, Eli placed the glowing coin on the table. It pulsed gently with light like a quiet heartbeat. His scanner couldn't identify the metal. Not Earth-made. Not from any known colony or empire, Eli whispered to himself. What kind of girl walks barefoot through ice, leaves with my boots, and travels with monsters? His comms still weren't working. Static buzz no matter what frequency he tried. The outpost was cut off, and something told him that wasn't an accident. He checked his camera logs, footage was missing. A whole block of time had been erased from the night before. Either my system's broken, he muttered, or someone didn't want to be seen. Later that day, Eli drove his small hoverbike toward the local trade station. It was 2 hours away. He needed to send a message to command. Maybe the girl was part of something bigger, a refugee, a scout, a warning. As he reached a rocky pass, he stopped the bike. The path was blocked. A large stone sat in the middle of the road. But it wasn't just a rock. It had been placed there, carefully, and on top of it sat something strange. His old tool wrench, the one that vanished last night. It was cleaned, polished, wrapped in silver string. Almost like a gift, he looked around. No one, no sound, just wind and dust. Eli picked up the wrench slowly, then noticed a mark on the stone, a symbol, the same one that was on the glowing coin. This wasn't just a random act. Someone was watching him. Back at the outpost, as the sun dipped behind the horizon, Eli sat in silence. The coin was glowing brighter now, and the sky above him didn't look right. Small lights moved across the stars. Not meteors, not satellites. They moved with purpose. And then, he heard a noise, a soft thump. Behind the outpost, he grabbed his flashlight and stepped outside. There, near the wall, stood a shape. Tall, armored, silent. It looked like a statue at first, completely still. Eli's breath caught in his throat. The figure didn't move. Then it turned, slowly, gently. 2 glowing eyes looked at him through a dark helmet. Then the figure reached into its belt and pulled out a small package. It placed the package on the ground and stepped back. Without a word, it disappeared into the night. Eli didn't follow. His hands trembled as he opened the package. Inside was a pair of boots, his old ones, but now repaired, shined, reinforced with a metal lining unknown to him. They looked almost ceremonial, like something worn by royalty. Underneath the boots was another coin, larger, brighter, and pulsing faster. Eli whispered, "What are you trying to tell me?" He didn't have the answer yet, but something deep inside him said this wasn't over. The girl with no shoes had left more than footprints. She had left a message, and it had just begun. That night, the desert around Eli's outpost was quiet. Too quiet, no wind, no insects. Even the stars above seemed to watch in silence. Inside, Eli stared at the 2 glowing coins. One was small and warm. The other was bigger, brighter, and pulsed like a heartbeat. The boots he had given to the barefoot alien girl now sat beside them, clean, shiny, and completely rebuilt. He didn't understand what was happening. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't even important. He was just a repairman on a forgotten planet. So why had someone or something returned his boots like a sacred item? He looked at the bigger coin. The glowing symbols on it slowly changed. They moved like living light. One of them began to blink. Suddenly, the lights inside the outpost flickered. Then everything went dark. Eli stood up fast, grabbing a flashlight. He stepped outside. The cold air wrapped around him like ice, but before he could take 2 steps, he froze. There, near the edge of the outpost, stood a tall shadow. Not moving, not breathing. Just watching. Its eyes glowed faint blue. It was the same armored figure from before. Eli's voice cracked. "Who are you? What do you want?" No answer. The figure slowly raised its hand. In its palm was a small black cube with silver edges. It glowed faintly. Then the figure threw it toward Eli. Eli caught it, barely. It was light, cold. The moment his fingers touched it, the cube clicked open and projected a hologram. A soft light filled the night air. In the air, floating before Eli's eyes was her, the barefoot alien girl. But now, she was wearing a long robe glowing softly, like something royal. Her hair was clean, her skin healed, and on her feet were his boots. She looked straight at Eli, her eyes full of emotion. Then she spoke, slow, broken English. "You helped me without fear, without asking." Her voice was soft like a whisper from space. "You gave warmth when others gave nothing, so now you are seen." The message stopped. The cube shut. The image vanished. Eli stood there, heart pounding. Seen? Seen by who? He looked up, but the figure was gone. No footsteps, no sound. Just empty space. He felt cold all over. The next morning, Eli drove to the nearest village, hoping someone could explain the strange events. The people there were scared. An old man pulled him aside. "You saw one of them, didn't you?" Eli asked. "One of who?" The man whispered. "The Watchers. They test people. Not with machines, not with guns. With small things. Acts of kindness. If you pass, they remember. If you fail, they disappear. Forever." Eli's stomach turned. "What happens if they remember you?" he asked. The man looked at the sky. "They come back, and not just to thank you." That night, back at the outpost, Eli sat by the door with the 2 coins and the repaired boots. He couldn't sleep. Every shadow outside looked like movement. Every creak sounded like footsteps. At exactly midnight, his scanner lit up. Unidentified object. Approaching fast. Then, it stopped. Right outside. Eli rushed to the door and opened it. No ship, no figure. Just a small box, glowing silver, sitting on the ground. He picked it up and took it inside. Inside the box was something that made Eli's hands shake. It was a photo of the alien girl, smiling, standing next to 2 tall aliens. One wore a crown. The other had armor. Behind them was a giant hall made of crystal, and under the photo, written in his own language, were the words, "She is home now." "Because of you." Eli sat down slowly. He didn't understand the whole truth. But now he knew one thing. The girl was not just a lost child. She was someone important, and the galaxy was watching him. The skies above Tarsus 9 had never looked so strange. Eli stood outside his outpost, staring upward. Tiny lights moved slowly between the stars. They were not blinking like normal satellites. They were floating, in formation, circling. The air felt thicker. He could feel something in his chest, like the ground itself was holding its breath. Eli whispered, "They're watching, still watching." Inside the outpost, the strange black cube that had shown the alien girl's hologram began to glow again. But this time it didn't show her. Instead, it showed maps, the galaxy, trade routes, and dozens of red dots appearing on the edges, like ships, too many ships. The cube displayed a single word in human standard language, "Approaching." Eli stepped back. "Approaching what?" Then a second word appeared. "You." That night, the wind howled across the rocks, but Eli couldn't sleep. He sat by the window, boots in hand, both coins on the table and the photo of the alien girl beside them. In that picture, she had smiled with pride, standing between what looked like her father, a king, and a warrior. She had returned home. But why had they chosen him? He was just a mechanic, a nobody, a man who gave up his boots. That couldn't be enough, could it? The next morning, a deep hum filled the sky. Not sound. Vibration. The metal walls of his outpost trembled. Tools rattled off the shelves. Even the water in his glass rippled like something heavy was moving. Above, Eli ran outside, and what he saw made him stop breathing. The clouds had vanished. In their place was a fleet, not human. Massive alien ships floated silently across the sky like dark mountains in space, sleek, quiet, watching, and they weren't just flying. Overhead, they were forming a ring around the outpost. Eli turned on his emergency beacon. No signal. He tried to activate his hoverbike. Dead. Everything. Electronic shut down. A bright beam of light shot down from the sky and landed just 10 feet from him. It didn't burn. It didn't shake the ground. It just stood there like a column of pure light, humming gently. Then from inside the beam, a figure slowly descended. Her, the barefoot alien girl, now dressed in silver and gold robes, her hair braided like royalty. On her feet were the same boots Eli had given her, only now, they shined like armor. She walked toward him calmly. Behind her, dozens of armored guards stood in silence, surrounding the light. Eli swallowed hard. "You came back?" She nodded, her voice stronger this time. "Yes, you are marked now, seen." Eli took a shaky breath. "Seen by who?" The girl stepped closer. Her eyes shimmered. "By the ones who watch. The ones who decide who is worthy." Eli blinked. "Worthy of what?" She looked at the sky, and then she said the words that changed everything. "You gave hope where none was given, and now your kind will not be forgotten." Behind her, one of the alien guards stepped forward. He held something in both hands, a small black box with glowing edges. The guard handed it to Eli, bowed and stepped back. Eli opened it slowly. Inside was a piece of cloth, part of her original outfit, torn and dirty from when she arrived barefoot, and on top of it was a medal made of glowing crystal. His name was engraved in alien script. Along with the words, "First Human of Honor." He looked up, stunned. "Why me?" The girl smiled. "Because you didn't ask who I was, before giving me shoes." Above them, the skies began to shift again. The alien ships slowly opened their wings, glowing with blue light, not threatening, celebrating. And in that moment, Eli understood something powerful. It wasn't the boots, it was the choice to help. Someone who had nothing, without expecting anything in return. That choice had made one human known to an entire galaxy, and the sky itself now carried his name. The stars above Tarsus 9 no longer looked distant, now they looked alive. Eli stood outside his outpost holding the black box the alien girl's guard had given him. Inside was the glowing medal with his name etched in alien script. He still couldn't believe it. He had no crown, no title, no rank. Just a pair of hands that once gave boots to a barefoot girl. Now a fleet hovered in the skies for him. That evening the girl, now clearly a royal, stood beside him again. Her voice was soft, but her words held power. "You gave me steps," she said, looking down at the boots on her feet. "You gave me strength when I had nothing." Eli looked at her, still unsure. "But I didn't even know who you were." She smiled. "That's why it mattered." The sky above shimmered. A massive screen of light spread like a glowing curtain. It wasn't coming from Earth, it was coming from the fleet above. It stretched across the clouds, projecting a hologram across the entire planet. The image that appeared made Eli's knees weaken. It was the girl. From the day she arrived barefoot, bruised, weak, then the recording changed, showing Eli offering his boots. Wrapping a blanket around her, giving food, a quiet voice began to speak, not hers, not Eli's, but something deeper, older. It said, one act, one choice, one human. When power forgot kindness, he remembered. Let this moment be seen across stars. The one who gave steps to a princess, gave honor to a galaxy. Eli stared in shock. This wasn't just a thank you, this was a public message. To all alien empires, all species, a message that said, humans are not weak. They are not cruel. They are not forgotten. They are worthy. And it all started with a pair of boots. The alien girl stepped forward and handed him a small sphere. "This is a seed," she said. "It will grow only once, in the right place. When it blooms, our people will come again." Eli turned the sphere in his hand. It pulsed gently with warmth. "Why give this to me?" he asked. "Because the stars remember," she said. "And you are now part of their memory." Suddenly, the earth rumbled softly. The massive ships above began to shift. Their wings opened wide, revealing blue glowing cores. They were leaving, one by one. The ships turned toward the stars, rising higher into space, like silent giants heading home. The girl looked at Eli one last time. "We were once a cold empire," she said. "We had machines, armies, but no soul. You reminded us of what we had forgotten." She placed her hand gently on his shoulder. "Thank you, guardian of the barefoot star." With that, she stepped into the light and disappeared. Eli stood alone. The skies slowly returned to normal. The wind returned. The silence of the desert returned, but Eli was changed forever. Back inside his outpost, he placed the sphere next to the 2 coins and the medal. He sat down and looked around, same walls, same tools, same old chair, but everything felt different. He had no idea how to explain what happened. No one would believe him. But above him, somewhere in the stars, an entire armada now knew his name, and far, far away, on a distant world of crystal towers and glowing trees, a statue was being built. It showed a human kneeling, offering his boots to a barefoot girl, and below it, in glowing gold, the words, "Compassion is the first step to greatness." The next morning, Eli stepped outside his outpost, expecting silence, but the sky was not empty. It was filled with ships, alien ships, hundreds of them, lined in perfect rows, hovering just above the clouds. No engines roared, no weapons showed. They floated like shadows, glowing softly with light. The world was watching. Eli could see drones in the sky, sent from nearby colonies and human bases. Even Earth Command had sent satellites to record. Everyone had the same question. Why were these alien ships here? And why were they all facing a single man, Eli, a simple mechanic on a quiet planet? Then, without warning, something amazing happened. The Armada began to bow. One by one, the alien ships dipped forward, lowering their noses in his direction. Some released streams of blue light. Others released soft music echoing like stars humming, all for him. Eli stood frozen, boots crunching in the dry dirt, eyes wide. He had no crown, no uniform, no army. He only had a story, a moment, and a girl with no shoes. The message from the alien girl had already reached dozens of worlds overnight. The hologram of Eli giving his boots to her had gone viral across alien networks, even translated into hundreds of languages. To many species, the act seemed small, but to those who had forgotten kindness, it meant everything. In places where weakness was punished, in places where royalty never touched the poor, in places where help always came with a price. Eli's action stood out like fire in the dark. Inside Earth Command's main hall, leaders stared at screens showing the Armada. Some were afraid, some were confused, but one general stood up and said, "We may have just made our first real friends in the stars." Across distant alien planets, children played games pretending to be Eli. Statues were built, songs were written. A new word was born in alien tongues, a title without translation. It meant, "The one who gives when nothing is expected." Back on Tarsus 9, Eli didn't want power. He didn't want attention. He only wanted to know why, so he called out into the sky, "Why me?" A soft voice answered from above, broadcast through the fleet, "Because you did not wait for reward. You saw pain and you stepped forward. That is the rarest power in the universe." Then came another message, from a species humanity had never spoken to before. A deep, growling voice said, "We once ruled with fire, but today we lower our banners for the human who gave shoes. We request audience." Eli sat down on the steps of his outpost, overwhelmed. He looked at the seed sphere the alien princess had given him. It was glowing brighter now, slowly pulsing with a soft light. He didn't know where to plant it yet, but he would wait. And when the time was right, something beautiful would grow. Hours later, as the sun set behind the hills, a single ship descended from the Armada. It landed silently. The door opened. Out stepped a young alien child, not the princess, but someone new. A boy, barefoot. He walked up to Eli and simply said, "My sister told me about you. I wanted to meet the man who made our skies open." Eli smiled, knelt down, and gently touched the boy's shoulder. "You're safe here," he said softly. And far above, thousands of ships turned gently in the sky, preparing to leave. But before they did, they sent down one final gift, a glowing satellite that hovered forever above Eli's outpost. On its surface, written in human and alien language, "This place is sacred, protected by compassion, watched by stars." The winds of Tarsus 9 had changed. They no longer carried only dust and silence. Now they carried hope. It had been 3 days since the alien fleet bowed before Eli's outpost. The sky had returned to blue. The stars had returned to stillness. But something deep in the land had awakened. Eli walked to a small patch of ground near his home. It was quiet there, peaceful. In his hands he held the glowing seed sphere the alien princess had given him. She had told him, "This will grow once." In the right place, Eli knelt down. Gently he placed the seed in the soil. He pressed it down with care and then waited. At first nothing happened. The wind blew softly across the sand. A bird flew past. In the distance the horizon shimmered with heat. Eli sighed. Maybe it would take days, maybe weeks. He stood up, dusted off his hands. Then the ground rumbled, softly at first, then stronger. The soil around the seed glowed bright white, like starlight coming from the earth itself. Eli stepped back as the light shot upward, and before his eyes, something began to grow. It wasn't a normal plant, it was a tree of light. Its trunk shimmered like crystal, its leaves sparkled like tiny stars, and as it rose higher it began to sing, not with sound but with feeling, a calm, a warmth, a message, and that message was clear. One step changed everything. The tree pulsed once and a soft wave spread across the ground. Where the light touched, Flowers bloomed. The soil became rich, the air cleaner, the wind sweeter. It was as if the planet had been waiting for this moment, for kindness to return. A small ship landed nearby. From it stepped the alien girl, the princess, once barefoot, now standing tall in her glowing boots. Behind her were elders, leaders, and children of many worlds. They all stood in silence before the glowing tree. She walked up to Eli, her voice steady. "You planted it." Eli nodded. It felt right. She placed her hand on the tree and whispered something in her language. The leaves glowed brighter in response. Then she turned to the crowd. "This human," she said, did not raise his voice. He did not fight. He did not lead armies. He only gave what he had. To someone who had nothing, she looked back at Eli. And that is what real power looks like. The crowd stepped forward, one by one, placing small gifts at the base of the tree, tokens from their homeworlds. A feather, a shell, a metal ring, a crystal fruit. All different. All meaningful. Each one whispered a word in their own language, all different, but all meaning the same thing. "Thank you." Eli stood still, overwhelmed. He didn't ask for this, he didn't want to be famous, but now, he was something greater. He was a reminder that kindness matters, that the smallest action can echo through the universe. A few days later, Earth Command contacted Eli. They wanted to build a research center around the tree, turn the outpost into a place of learning, peace, culture, but Eli had only one request: no politics, no business, just stories. They agreed. And soon, people from all over the galaxy came to see the Tree of One Step. Years passed. Children walked through the garden barefoot, touching the soft, glowing leaves, and when they asked who planted the tree, their teachers would point to a statue nearby, a human man, kneeling, holding out a pair of boots, and below the statue, words written in every known language. One step, one gift.
One galaxy forever changed. Eli never wanted to be a hero, but in the eyes of the stars,
He always would be.